Hi, welcome to North of 48. It is April 5th. It's 0 degrees here in where I am. That would be me, stuck in the cold. But that's okay. I planted 21 tulips out in my front yard, and I'm hoping that they'll grow through the snow. So today we're at, whoops, here we go. We're at day 773 of the Russian invasion into Ukraine. However, we have a special guest, Konstatin from inside Russia. Please check out his YouTube video, and he has lots of things on there if you're interested. So Konstantin has a YouTube channel that provides information on Russia. He has a rabbit hole of information that shows you videos before the war in Ukraine, his subsequent reactions to what was happening, and his travel to where he lives now with his family. Konstantin is a prolific YouTuber providing content that is needed in these times. He trained as an economist and provides information about the Russian economy and political maneuvering. He has regular updates on events in Russia, providing much needed contact for the news coming from that country, and a monthly interview on the Silicon Curtain YouTube and podcast show. Welcome, Konstantin. How are you, my friend?
Hello, Walter. Good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh,
It's our second talk, and it's a pleasure.
Second talk, and it's been about a year. So I am just so pleased and happy that I could have you on with all the events that have been happening out in Russia and the Ukraine. And you bring a welcome breath of fresh air and dialogue and truth into the conversation about this. And I know it's early morning where you are, so I appreciate you being here. So thank you again.
Oh, at least the weather is nice. It's about 20 degrees Celsius. Not too bad.
You're killing me. You're killing me, buddy.
Look, I think it's been 2 years, almost 2 years.
Is it almost 2 years?
Year. I think so. I think we spoke in 2022 while I still was in Russia, right?
Yes, this is true.
Yeah, I had to flee in September of 2022. So it's going to be 2 years of me living outside Russia.
That's right.
Soon, very soon. So
how's the adjustment been? Because I know you also have a Tashkent breakfast club with Russian expats and Ukrainians and other people from other nationalities. How is that going right now?
The breakfast club is going great. Our community has grown to 1,000+ people.
Wow.
I'm trying to establish breakfast clubs all over the world where Russians have fled to.
Okay.
Thailand, Turkey, Dubai, places like that.
Right.
That's the idea so far.
Okay.
I'm also involved in a couple more projects. One of them is called Brain Drain. I tried to help Russians and Ukrainians who, like me, have fled Russia or have fled the war,
right?
To bring them to the United States to work, the professionals, like engineers and doctors and professions like that, people like that. So I've been busy between all of these things and my channel. So been busy.
I'll say I'm a constant viewer of your channel, and I appreciate everything you do on that.
Thank you.
It's great. I mean,
Thank you.
Seriously is, and we'll make sure there's a link to it in our show notes here. Been getting quite a. We've had. I don't know if you know who Philip Eitner is.
Philip
Eitner. He was CBS ex-CBS reporter. He's in Kiev, and I have him on occasionally, and he provides great insight as to what's happening in Kiev as well. So, as well as Vlad Vexler, we've had on the program. So my interest in this is my family is got Russian roots, as well as Polish and Ukrainian roots. So this has been a very hard thing with the war to grasp. And being just a little YouTuber or podcast host, I appreciate your time and being able to ask you the questions that I don't necessarily hear asked. To try to wrap my mind around what's happening there. So Ukraine has apparently been droning about 20% of the refinery capacity in Russia. And they're flying drones into airports, chemical factories, and knocking out about 20% production of the oil. That means the ability of Russia to fund the war is threatened, because I'm under the understanding it's the oil revenues that fund the war, as well as Prigozhin's forays into Africa with dictators and getting gold out of Africa to feed the Russian coffers, if you will. So I just want to start out by saying I worked for a company in the early 2000s, and I know you're an economist and also an engineer of sorts, right? Project based. In
Yes.
the early 2000s, I worked for a company that had wellheads directional drilling that had Canadians going over to build a plant in Siberia. It was declared by local politicians and cronies in Russia that it was now 50% owned by them. If you disagreed, then it would be 100% owned by them. So the company folded. Well, it didn't fold, but it said, okay, there you go. Better to have 50% of something than 100% of nothing. That seems to be the way politics in Russia worked, at least then, coming out of the 90s. Is it still like that?
May I ask you a question? Was it before the war started?
Yes.
When they okay. Yes, okay.
Yes. Early
Understood.
2000s.
Early 2000s. Yes, that sounds familiar.
Right. So if the Siberian wellheads are destroyed, which our company went out there to put in directional drilling to get the oil up to the ground, which was a massive endeavor in the frost, ground frost there in Siberia.
Permafrost.
Right. If these wellheads are destroyed, that could well mean that oil production will remain locked or frozen, as from what I understand, the technical abilities of the Russian techs are suspect, and the oil will remain locked in the ground, because once they're done, you got to re-drill the whole thing because it freezes, and you can't unfreeze it, you can't lock it. Just do you agree with that statement, that Russia would have a hard time redoing their infrastructure for refineries if something like that
Russia
happened?
would not be having a hard time. Russia will have tremendously tragic time with that. Okay, it's a done deal as far as I understand. I'm not a huge expert on oil drilling,
Okay.
so my knowledge is, just there on the surface. What I pick up from other experts and so forth, I'm more about Russian economy than Russian oil. But you said that Ukrainian drones were hitting Russian oil and
Right.
halted. I think you said 10% of Russian oil. I disagree with that. Ukrainian drone attacks targeted oil refineries.
Mhm.
Russian, as far as I know, Russian oil fields where they extract oil, they were not affected. They're far away in the east and north of Russia. But what was affected is refining oil, crude oil, into the products, petroleum products. And that is huge because Russia pumps out lots of oil. I think
Mhm.
around 9 million barrels. Um, but and it sells lots of crude oil, but it does not have many facilities to refine oil into petroleum products, and that's always been Russia's bottleneck. Okay, and Ukrainians have found where they can hit the hardest. Okay, and I've been doing that, and my understanding is Russia is going to have very hard time with diesel and gasoline. Right now, they've done two things to offset the damage that was done by Ukrainians. The government has banned oil companies who own refineries also to export petroleum products. They used to do that a lot to keep all the petroleum products inside Russia. And the second, they have started using Belarusia capacities. They have two huge refineries, and it's too much for Belarus. There's like excess of petroleum products, so they are using Belarus to import, so to speak, to
Mhm.
use their capacities. And I still think that the damage has been done, and first of all, there's less diesel available to the tanks in Ukraine now. At least they're going to have harder time getting that diesel there, and consumers in Russia they're definitely gonna be hit soon. As far as I know, wholesale prices for gasoline have gone up by 30% already, and
Okay.
there's a certain lag between wholesale exchange and the price at the pumps. Okay, it takes usually a few weeks.
Mhm.
So if the price have gone up now, in a couple weeks, regular Russians will start seeing the price increase at the pumps. Um, Russian, as far as I know, for the extraction, um, Russians never had the technology to drill. And they always invited American and Canadian companies, like what you just described. And
Mhm.
for the most part, they outsourced that kind of work. They never possessed technology because that's a very sophisticated technology. And now no one wants to drill anymore. And they cannot outsource it to the Chinese because Chinese also don't have the technology. Chinese don't have oil, so they have not developed their own technology, and they cannot buy it from the Americans,
That's a
Canadians,
very good point. Yeah.
because you just don't want to sell it to them. You know where the technology will go to.
Mhm.
So Russia has voluntarily decreased the production by 900 gallons, I think per day, right? Per day is this?
Per day, I think. Yeah.
Yes, per day. In the last 12 months, they're saying that it's due to OPEC plus agreements.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Russia is not a part of OPEC, and it does not have to follow the OPEC rules or OPEC agreements, and that never well, it was not a part of OPEC bunch in the
Mhm.
past. So there are people, experts, saying that Russians are using OPEC Plus name to mask off its decline in oil production. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm just picking up the knowledge on the surface. Okay,
Right.
that's what I know about Russia's oil production and Russia's oil industry.
Well, there were reports out of Russia that the economy was growing by 2%, and I think you covered this, right?
Yes, I have
And
extensively.
it's something like it was growing by 1%, and then the war started, and all of a sudden they're up to 2%, um, based on information supplied from the Russians, is my understanding from the government. Do you think that's true? Is the Russian economy growing right now?
It is growing in a way. It is growing a great deal. Well, see, Russian economy can be split in two now. One is regular economy, civil or civic industries, and another part is the war economy, the military-industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
And the military-industrial complex has indeed grown by, I don't know, 40-50%. But it means that the rest of the economy, the rest of the industries that are not part of the military industrial complex have fallen, they've declined tremendously.
Yeah.
Okay. And what the government, how is this, how is the economy growing? Okay. There are no investors left in Russia. All foreign and domestic investors have fled. Okay. That's smart people.
Mm-hmm.
Like how can it grow? Russian government, well, Russia is not the poorest country in the world, as you know, and it had reserves. Okay, I give it to the government that it did quite a good policy of stockpiling the wealth before the war for a couple decades. Okay, they accumulated large savings account for the country. And they've been using this savings account to flood military industrial complex with money, to flood uh, everyone who's connected with the war with money. Okay,
Mhm.
they don't count money, and that what has given Russia the effect of growth, but it's not real growth. Okay, it's just they've been using their savings account, and it's nearly gone now. They have enough money for 4 months of financing the war economy. So the military industrial complex has definitely grown, but that's pretty much it.
That's right. And
And overall, Russian economy is in a bad shape.
well, I think the Russian government posted that they're going up to 6% on military and armaments as a proportion of GDP, which is more than most
You said
countries.
6?
6%, yeah. Is it more or less?
30, over 30%, as far as I understand.
30%. Well, I'm going to have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get a
They
better
they've
news
they've
source, I think, my friend.
they've gone up. They using a third of their country's budget, federal budget, to finance not just the war economy, but to finance the Siloviki, the
Yes.
power agencies that maintain order, status quo, not order, but status quo inside Russia. You know, the police, the KGB, and all of that. They're flooding everyone with money. Whoever is connected with the war, whoever is serving the government, you know, they're not counting money for them.
Hiroshi
But
everywhere, you know?
they cutting expenses for education, for healthcare, you know,
Mhm.
for pretty much everywhere else they can cut the expenses.
Right. Well, I watch some of these YouTubers like Natalie and stuff, and there's a couple from Russia who are still able to get on YouTube, and they describe their situation in the small villages and stuff. I would say almost desperate. Um, I'm
I
of
believe
the
that.
I'm of the opinion that Moscow and St. Petersburg are insulated a bit from all the depreciation in the economy, right?
Um,
They got groceries still. They can buy cars built in China, and you put a Moskva emblem on it, and there you go. Here's a Russian car, right? I think I've heard you talk about that.
that is true, but the Chinese are also selling their cars under their brands.
Mhm.
And actually, the Chinese car makers flooded Russia. And one company called JAC, one of our largest Chinese automakers, decided to actually build a plant, a joint venture with a Russian company, Lada, with a
Oh,
Zhiguli, whatever, you know.
yeah.
But the thing is, they just pulled out of Russia
Okay.
because the Americans warned them that they're going to be under sanctions, and they said, well, you know, forget it.
Mhm.
And Russians are upset about that. Moscow and St. Petersburg. You see, that's if you're familiar with Russia, Russian culture, Moscow and St. Petersburg have always been isolated, separated from the rest of Russia. We in Russia we call Moscow not part of Russia. Moscow is Moscow, and the rest is Russia.
Moscow,
St.
no part of
Petersburg,
Russia. I just want to savor that for a second.
it's
Maybe
not. I mean,
Moscow is Russia and everybody else is not Russia.
well, maybe that's a good one. um, it's always been a custom in Russia that Muscovites, people who live in Moscow, they have it better than others. If
Hmm.
you go to Moscow now, you're gonna enjoy the city. There's no doubt. It's clean. It's well maintained. Well, perhaps not as clean as before the war because lots of people were mobilized and the janitors and street cleaners and all that. But still, it's fairly clean compared to other Russian cities, and it's well maintained.
Hmm.
It's you know, patched up. It's got painted facade, so to speak. I remember last time I was in Moscow. Well, I enjoyed Moscow was after, you know, I remember after the start of the war, being April of 2022, I was driving around Moscow, and you know, I was talking to my wife, and we were saying, you know, look, let's remember the city. It's not going to be the same ever because
Hmm.
that's going to go from down from here. But it's still pretty. Okay, and St. Petersburg is the same more or less. And yes, there are a lot of stores and there's plenty of food, but it's not just Moscow. There's plenty of food everywhere. Everywhere. You see, even in the USSR, we did not starve. We always had potato, we always had bread, flour, onion, so we could cook home like the very basic meals. I don't think that Russians will starve anytime soon. Um, but
Okay.
definitely things have changed in terms of prices. The stores are still fully stocked, but the prices have gone up tremendously. I monitor the price from 30 to 50%,
Mhm.
and the salaries have not gone up. Okay, the inflation, it's not yet galloping, but it's on the way there. And I believe that in a few weeks, we're going to see very drastic changes in Russian economy.
In what way? What are you
Uh,
forecasting?
well, the huge event happened a couple of weeks ago. Presidential elections. Vladimir Putin was elected. Well, not really was
Well,
elected,
yeah.
but
Okay.
was placed as a president for the fifth time.
Let me ask you the question this way, okay, Konstantin? Your presidential elections in Russia happened. Putin won. So is that not the Russian people saying, "Good on you, Putin. You're doing the war good. Keep going." Is it not a plebiscite on Putin's ability to rule? Because it
Well,
was it was it was fair, right? It was a fair election, was it not?
no, not really. No, it was not fair election. No
Excuse
one really knows how fair it was, but
me.
I think that there's no way that 80% of people, 78 point whatever, could have voted for
His
Putin
popularity
for
is going
war.
up. It's on the way up. That's the best result he's ever had, right?
Said who? Said the Central Election Committee, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
Well,
the
yeah,
Politburo. Yeah.
that the Politburo, that's what they're saying. Putin have lost outside Russia. I
Right.
witnessed myself how almost every single Russian here in Tashkent got up and stood in line, in a huge line, to vote. And in every city where the diaspora is, those of us who have fled,
Mhm.
everyone came up and showed political activity and voted against Putin. So Putin lost outside Russia,
Yeah.
that's for sure. And I think the real results, we don't know what they are. Okay. A lot of people do support Putin and they're brainwashed. They do support war. And that's very sad. Sad for me to say, to admit. But it's not his election was not landslide. His win was not landslide, and it's just so much murky water with that
Well,
elections.
I've seen the videos of putting the green dye into ballot boxes.
Yeah, all
I've
over
seen the
Russia, all
videos of
over,
ballots already being in the box and then them putting the
all
box
over,
out
all over, all
all
over. I
over.
mean, this,
Yeah.
yeah, all over Russia. I mean, it's not fair elections.
Right.
But anyway, they're why they're so important for Putin. Okay, he could have said, "Oh, I'm gonna reign Russia until I die." Right?
Right.
No,
Right.
he wants to maintain this facade of democracy. He
Okay.
wants to maintain, like you said, the plebiscite that all Russians said, "Okay, Putin, we give you the power to rule Russia for 6 more years, be our president, make decisions, and so forth." That's the official admittance of him as the ruler of Russia. That's why it was so important. And that event was hugely important for the vertical of power because people were who were running Russia basically. Putin ordered them to deliver the victory, and they did. They did everything they could to actually deliver it. And I call it 6 months of sugarcoating Russia.
Okay.
Sugarcoating so people would not get upset so much with things. For example, prices going up. For example, Russian ruble devaluing. For example, inflation is, jumping up a great deal. So they were trying to sugarcoat everything in the economy um, to keep people calm until the elections. But now the elections are over. the election is over, and yeah, we're gonna be seeing a drastic change. First of all, Russian ruble is going to be devalued a great deal. Second, the prices will be let go, so to speak, so that we will see a huge increase, spike in prices. Third, gasoline shortages possibly. Right now, Russia is an agricultural country, and this they start planting season. Okay, and will they have enough diesel fuel? Big question. Uh, and overall, another thing is mobilization. It has started already, a new wave. They need 300,000 more people.
Okay.
And other smaller things not so pleasant. So basically, the masks are off, the sugar coating is off, and that's why we're gonna be seeing quite a few changes.
Yeah. Well, so the theory is that there was a couple 100,000 to 300,000 Russian soldiers killed so far in the war. That's the theory, or maimed or injured. But with the resources of Russia, they've been reconstituted, so you can have another 300,000 soldiers out there, albeit they won't be better trained, won't be better armed. Basically, going to a slaughterhouse, maybe. I don't know, with the amount of killing going on right now in a war that is unnecessary, totally unnecessary. You know, the resources of Russia are its men and women, really. And is there, once they start there, so you're saying the recruitment's already come on, but it hasn't affected Moscow or St. Petersburg as much, right? Because once
It has.
oh,
It
it
has.
has.
It's different now. Yes.
Is there some
Uh,
grumblings coming out of Moscow then
I don't
about
think
this?
that I don't think that anything will come out of Moscow, St. Petersburg, any big cities. I'll give you a couple examples now.
Sure. Yes,
You
please.
see, when they announced the first mobilization, it was very, how do I say that? Rude job,
Rude
very
job.
very rude, unprepared.
Right.
Not neat. Not smooth, very rough.
Hmm.
Um, Basically, Putin came out and said, "Well, we're mobilizing 300, whatever, 50,000 people,"
Yeah.
and everyone started running away from Russia, myself including. And I witnessed incredible situation. I had never seen anything like that before. I had witnessed airports full of men, women crying, men just buying tickets and flying out of Russia anywhere. I ended up in a small town in Tajikistan, in the mountains of Tajikistan. And I was walking towards Uzbekistan along with hundreds of other guys, middle-aged guys just like me, who left their families, behind, and everything behind, basically. So Russian authorities, they were not prepared. They didn't know what to do. They were letting us out. They didn't know how to mobilize us. There was no procedure. There was no system in place. But they started building a new system on October 6th of 2022. I remember quite well because, I do streams on that. I keep
Mhm.
records of everything. It seemed like KGB was allowed to, was made the center. There was no unification of different agencies. For example, Border Patrol didn't know who was summoned to the mobilization centers or not, and they were letting out those people who were summoned. There was no united database, okay? And they started building it. And Putin ordered to create a new system that would effectively keep count of all men who are eligible for mobilization and, new procedures of mobilization itself. And he ordered that new system be over and commenced by April 1st, 2024. And,
Wow.
a few days ago, and I think it was even ready and commenced before the deadline. But now the core of the system is everything digital. They have new laws now. For example, they don't have to summon you. If they want to mobilize you, they don't have to summon you. They simply put your name into the database. I don't know how they do that, a check mark or something like that, and that's it. Automatically, you're not allowed to leave Russia. You, if you don't show up to the mobilization center in, I think 7 days, either 1 or 2 weeks, your driver's license is automatically canceled, revoked. Your bank accounts are closed. You cannot sell or buy property, and you're limited. If you're a business owner, you're limited in your rights to operate business. So basically, they don't even have to notify you. Okay, they just put your name into a database, and that's it. You're done. You're like switched off from the society. You have two choices: either to go to turn yourself in or run into woods and live there. Okay,
Run into woods.
because there's no other choice. And they did a pretty darn good job, evil job, but good job in creating this database. And they, you see, they linked together, not just technical database, but they created laws that gave foundation to the system. Okay, new rules, new regulations, and so forth. And they upped the age of people who can be mobilized. Before it was, I think, 35 for private, 40 for an officer, 45 for like high ranking officer. Now it's like 55, 60, 65. So imagine it's like all Russians are eligible for mobilization.
Well,
So
what about
they
for
don't have to.
Oh, sorry. What about for expats in other countries? Does this affect them?
Well, no, this
I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
that's okay. That they have started mobilizing the new way, but the thing is, they're doing it covertly now. They're doing it in the right way. They're doing it in a way that doesn't agitate people. People don't see that happening. I saw with my own eyes patrols going around Moscow and catching young men, checking their papers and stuff, you know? And people were taking videos of that and uploading. And there were Telegram channels in Moscow, like Moscow Mobilization. And there were like information coming out, oh, there's a patrol at this metro station. Please avoid. And then it was like a live, at a real life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now they're not doing it because they don't have to. They have a completely different system. And yes, they are catching, well, they have started with the expats, not really expats, but the new citizens of Russia. You see, Russian passport is desirable for a lot of people from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, those countries who are not doing financially as good as, you know, Russia is doing. So it's always been a prize to have Russian passport for them. And what happened is, again, they made a law about a year ago that if you receive a new passport, that you are allowed to keep your driver's license from the country where you came from, right, for 1 year. Okay. After your, after 1 year is passed, then you must come in to Russian DMV or whatever, you know, and exchange your driver's license. And now there are big lines because they introduced this law exactly 1 year ago. And now driver's license of this, you know, first people who became fresh citizens of Russia, they're expired. They need to replace with the Russian ones. So they stand in lines, and then the patrolmen come and mobilize them. Okay. This is what's happening. This is happening now in Moscow and St. Petersburg, perhaps in other cities, because just Moscow and St. Petersburg, they have more new citizens, more newly acquired citizens, you know, from Uzbekistan, from other countries. So they started doing it in Moscow for sure.
And well, if you do immigrants, nobody will say much. I mean, there's not a lot of rumble. But what about the normal Russian citizen in Moscow? Are they get mobilized as well?
I'm gonna tell you one little example, one case that
Sure.
I witnessed. Everyone is getting mobilized now. They're not. Moscow is getting hit more than the first wave, but not much rumbling or will be coming out of Moscow or other cities. This is what I witnessed. right next to Rostov, there is a town, and it's primarily, the Armenian residents. Rostov is a very Armenian town. Half of population is Armenian, and right next to it, there's like a suburb, a town of 15 or 20,000 people, and they're like almost 100% Armenian. They're Russian, but they're Armenian roots. And we have friends there, and friends sent us a video that completely shook me. Now it's imagine it's October, early September, late September or early October of 2022. Mobilization had been announced 10 days prior,
Right.
and uh, young men are given mobilization papers, summons, and they are ordered to come to the main square of this town at certain time. And there are a couple police cars come, and there's a bus for them from mobilization center, and then they are brought by their families, by mothers and fathers and grandmothers, and everyone is crying. Everyone is not happy. Everyone is very sad that their boys have to go to war. Okay.
Right.
But they bring them with their own hands. And I could never understand that. I think of my son, I would fight till death before I'd give him with my own hands. Okay. So they're all absolutely devastated. They're all crying, but they give their sons. Those people will not be mumbling, whatever. There will be no protest coming from them, because I don't even understand what worse than what already happened to them can happen to actually for them to start standing up. I don't think there's such a thing. Is they giving up their children with their own hands? If you know what worse can happen to them, please tell me.
Well, I've thought about a little bit about what you've thought, right? Like I've with Russian roots and stuff. I've been to funerals where the brothers are pulling each other hair out because their father has died and they're wondering about their inheritance. And these kids were 40. I had a couple of relatives come over from Belarus, and I hadn't met them before. We were at my aunt's 100th birthday, which is great.
Well,
But I thought they were arrogant. Do you know what I mean? And I was turned off by their attitude, being a Canadian, right? With our Russian and Slavic and Ukrainian and Polish people all getting along and stuff like that. But I got thinking that the Russian mentality, I wonder, is like Putin, is he insecure? Is it an insecurity? Because everything's over the top. We want to be the best in the world, or we have the best supersonic hydro missile. Is it a lack of confidence in your own ability to, like the mother bringing her son, she's doing the bidding of the state because she's been browbeaten to do so, right? Just grew up all her life that, from Soviets to the Russian political system you have now. Is that part of it? Is it something in the
no.
psyche of the Russian?
No.
No.
Was definitely in the psyche of the Soviet people,
Mm-hmm.
but you see, it's been 30 years, and things have changed tremendously from the USSR.
Right.
And this mentality, we're the best, we're the first, it does not exist any longer. Perhaps they're trying to build it up again. They're trying to bring the USSR back, version 0.2, improved, digitized, and all of that. But no one really cares. People just want to live good life, and most
Yeah.
Russians that I know now, that I speak to, they live in bubbles. When I start talking to them, asking them about war, what's going on with Ukraine, they shut me off. They're like, no, 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 we don't want to talk about it. Well, why? Well, we don't watch the news. We don't like to talk about it. We don't like to think about it. We just go to work every day. We, feed our families. That's it. Um, they don't care if they're number one. They could care less. It's something that the state is trying to. It's like dust in the eyes. That's what we call it in Russia.
Smoke and
Пускать
mirrors.
smoke and mirrors, right? Пускать пыль в глаза. To put dust in someone's eyes.
Right.
So that's that. I don't know when you met this Belarusian fellas, but perhaps in the Soviet times, but
No.
uh,
This was just a year ago. So
a year ago.
yeah,
Why?
I'm not sure how they got out of the country, but they did. So
hard for me to. Well, no, I disagree. There's no this mentality. We're the best, and now they're trying to brainwash everyone. Oh, we are surrounded by the enemies. We live so badly because it's not our fault. It's our enemies' fault. Our enemies are destroying. They've been conspiring against us since they're the ones responsible for the breakup of the USSR, and they've been trying to destroy sovereignty for the past 30 years. It's their fault. Okay, it's so much easier to not to take responsibility for your life.
Right.
And I guess that's what Russians really like of doing. Give you an example.
That's good
Look,
food for thought.
I have a neighbor, and I had a neighbor in Rostov on Don. I had the house there, and the guy was poor. For one simple reason, he drank. He was an alcoholic, and he didn't have a job.
Mhm.
His wife worked. She was a cashier at the local store, and I guess it was enough for them to have some vodka and some food. And then they were poor, poor, poor. Then he always blamed someone else for being poor. The government. The government is not doing enough to provide him good life. Former colleagues, and probably behind my back, he was blaming me and us as neighbors for, somehow interfering with his life. So that's what a lot of Russians are doing. That they're not taking responsibility for their lives.
Okay, that's very good food for thought. Plus, the government propaganda it's the West, it's NATO.
They're fueling it.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true, and that's unfortunate. The so the myth in North America, I've ran into some people because I know some of the stories from Russia, and my grandfather used to get they used to send him Pravda every couple of months, right? And it was something like Mother Russia needs your hard currency. Please send money to Mother Russia, right? And they left in 1939. So, but the myth with some of the people, smart people, that's really got me wondering about their intellectual honesty is that the myth that, and I think it's a myth anyways, that Russia deserves Ukraine and that's the reason for the war. Just give it to them. My own feeling is that if a bully comes into your house, you better punch him in the nose and get him out. And the myth in like the Tucker Carlsons and all these guys who are promoting Russian propaganda, and it's been proven, at least by the news people, that Russian propaganda infiltrates the American elections. It has infiltrated Canadian elections, but so has India, Pakistan, and China. They've interfered in our elections, and I have to quite say the Americans have interfered in elections all over the world too. So that's the kind of argument I get from a lot of these people. Do you see what's going to happen here? Is there an end to the war in sight? Is the economy got a crater? What are your feelings to bring this to an end and for Russia to finally move forward?
I'll
what do you think has to happen? I don't know if you spent much time thinking about it, but
all
that's my
time,
question. Yeah.
all time. I've spent so much time thinking about that.
Yeah.
A very tough question.
Oh, well, hey, I'm a Canadian. We're always tough. Just like you Russians. Tovarich. Yeah.
I'm not Russian anymore. I'm a hybrid.
You're a
Um,
hybrid. Well,
yeah, mutant hybrid.
no, you're a guy who has seen what was happening, and you were very thoughtful in your response to what was going to happen, and you're doing what's best for you and your family, and that is just credit to you, my friend.
Russians don't think so. Many Russians, they think, they say you poisoned. You lived in America for 9 years. You've been poisoned. They poisoned you. Okay, you need to come back and you need to serve your country. And I say, who? Well, your country. Well, who is my country? What is my country? Is your country needs you, and they cannot tell me who the country is. They just don't go any further. And then if I start using common sense and logic, and they shut me off and say, "Well, you got to decide who you're with us or with them." So used to drive me crazy, but now I'm used to it. So I'll start answering your question with, you made a very good point. You said Russians have this understanding that Ukraine always belonged to them. That is not entirely true. Well, it's not true at all.
Okay.
They don't. They don't. If you will go back in history, in 1991, the USSR fell apart and Ukraine became an independent country, same independent as Russia. Okay,
Right.
same as other republics of former USSR republics. And Russia had no problem with Ukraine being independent and living on its own. Okay, and Vladimir Putin himself came out and said publicly numerous times that Ukraine is a sovereign country, and um, whoever attempts to break its sovereignty, that's going to be a crime, and so forth. Moreover, when the war was declared, well, it was never declared, that the special military operation was declared on 24th of February of 2022. Vladimir Putin in the morning came out and he addressed the nation saying, look, Ukraine is our brothers and sisters, but Ukrainian regime, the government, we need to get rid of it because they're Nazis and they've created so many Nazis. So we are to denazify Ukraine and to demilitarize it, because as a military, it poses Nazis have all those guns. It poses us a threat. He never said anything about seizing Ukrainian land or taking over Ukraine. No, he said that's an in and out operation. We're gonna come in and not long. And then, as you remember, Russian military, okay, I remember very clearly, in day one, they expected that would be no resistance from Ukrainian military, and they came in and they didn't try to kill anyone. They were broadcasting this message saying, dear Ukrainian servicemen, we are not against you. We're against the Nazis that are in Kiev, the regime. We, please cooperate, and it's going to be over very soon. Let us know that you're not going to resist, and, you will leave you alone. And that's it. And that was understanding that the Ukrainian military would just give up and say, oh, welcome, welcome Russians, with the population would welcome with flowers. And so I don't understand what they were thinking, the Putin and his gang, but that was a huge mistake. And of course, Ukrainians started resisting from the very first second, right?
Mhm.
But there was no intention, and at least, it was sold to the world. There was no intention to take Ukraine. And moreover, Vladimir Putin, I remember, I made a stream. It's on record on my channel on 22nd of March of 2022. He came out and he publicly said, we are not to seize Ukrainian land. Not 1 centimeter of Ukrainian land will be seized by Russia. Okay.
Mhm.
6 months later, he was annexing Kherson. Mariupol, part of Zaporizhia and Donetsk and Luhansk.
Yeah.
What the hell? So original intention was different, but then things did not go as planned. This is my understanding, and they changed around on the spot, and they started saying, "Well, Ukraine always belonged to Russia." They made it up as they went. Okay, and I clearly remember that things started changing when they couldn't take Kiev, and they withdrew their forces in March after a month of fighting for Kiev, and they couldn't do anything. Okay. Right. And then they started coming up with the idea how to justify the invasion, how to justify what they had done. And that's when all this crazy ideas started appearing. And then what Putin is saying right now, it took them almost 18 months to come up with this stuff, because this is all fresh stories and fables and bullcrap, So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, big time, big time. I like that view from inside Russia. I mean, no, that's very interesting. So the progress of the war, like, it didn't go Russia's way. It wasn't a 3-day victory. It wasn't a 3-week victory. It's a long, slogging affair. And one thing the Russians are good at, I would say, is holding on. It's like giving somebody a hammer to go chop a boulder. That as long as that person gets paid for it, they'll keep hammering away at the boulder, and it'll take them 100 years or whatever to chip it away. Is there going to be, first of all, is there going to be a rebellion in Russia at all with Navalny dying? Is his wife have any? Do Russians look up to her as they looked up to Alexei? I guess is my question.
I am very sorry to say that,
Right.
but it's not going to make a difference. It's a tragedy. I personally, well, let's put it this way. How many Russians came out to say last goodbye to Alexei Navalny? You know
Thousands. That? Thousands, right?
Thousands. I'll tell you, 20,000.
Okay.
How many people live in Moscow?
What is
Around
it?
20 million?
20 million. Wow. Okay.
Or 20,000 out of 20 million?
Right.
Do you think that's enough? How many people came out in cities with like 1 million people population? Rostov, Kazan, Volgograd, and what, tens, hundreds, perhaps.
Right.
I have not heard any support for Navalny's wife.
Okay.
Navalny is a very bright spot for us, for the ones who are outside Russia.
Right.
He's united the opposition, so to speak, but unfortunately, I think that he's done very little effect on the Russians.
The majority of the population.
Majority of Russians, yeah, majority of Russians, yes.
Right. Okay. The terror attack at the hall there, at the concert hall and city hall, that was something. You've done quite a few streams on it, emergency streams, and I watched it intently as it was going. And I think there's 140 people now are listed as dead, somewhere around there, and more injured. Do you personally believe Ukraine had anything to do with that?
Of course not. Of course, that's nonsense. I mean,
right.
There is proof that Ukraine had nothing to do with that. ISIS released first-person footage of the killings.
Yes.
I mean, how would get their hands on that hours after the attack was done? So this puts a big fat dot, the end, to this speculations of the Ukraine. Okay, that's the proof, the bulletproof proof.
The bulletproof proof.
Yes, I figured the first thought was they're gonna blame Ukrainians. They're gonna blame Ukrainians, and they're gonna use it as um, an excuse for tightening the situation in Russia. For example, announcing mobilization and so forth. But I don't believe that it was unexpected because the government acted in its own Russian government way. They didn't do anything. They didn't say anything. They were dismayed by this. They didn't know what to do for the first
Mhm.
few hours. Okay, if they wanted to, if they were behind it, okay, and if they were, if they had known about that, then they had been prepared. Okay, they would make statements right after the attack and so forth. But basically, still, 2 weeks later, they haven't done much.
Right.
So it just tells me that they knew of the possible attack because Americans and the Iranians, as it turns out, the Iranians told them that there's going to be attack in the Crocus City Hall.
Yeah.
They knew, but they didn't do anything, and I don't think they did it on purpose because I think that just it's unprofessional. They thought it would not happen, things like that. So
Right. Well,
that's
some commenters have said it was a false flag operation. I personally don't think so. I would hesitate to imagine that the government would let the attack commence just to prove a point. However, I'm unsure because the police station was a block away, and then
not the block away. It was in the same building. It was
in the
50
same
meters
building.
away.
Okay, end of the
Yes,
block.
around the corner in the building, 50 meters. It would take them to grab their guns and to run. It would realistically take them 2 minutes and 3 minutes to walk.
Right,
And there's riot police, Rosguardia headquarters, national headquarters, 30-minute walk from
right,
that place. They showed up 1 hour later. Okay.
right.
They drove up in the cars.
Do you think the government might have let them do it, or do you think it's a false flag, or what are your thoughts
Uh,
on this? If
my
I can
first, my
ask you
first,
politely,
my
I'm
first
asking
thought,
politely.
yes, my first thought was it was false flag because I was expecting something like that after the election. It would be a perfect event for sugarcoating to be stopped. Okay. Um, but how the government acted after, I you know I mean, I cannot be 100% sure, okay,
Mhm.
but there are cons against it being a false flag attack. And, first of all, ISIS has claimed responsibility. Why would they if they didn't attack? And they have unique footage that no one else has. Okay, they released it right after the shooting. So, and that could not be faked in any way. Um,
I'll also point
again,
out there's ISIS-K has fought Russia and Syria and other places as well. So there's been a long history between ISIS and Russia. And
well, I think Russia is going to be seeing lots more terror because fundamentalism is on the rise. You see, Russia has become a murky waters for everyone,
right.
including those bad guys, from the Middle East. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be many more threats now in Russia.
Mhm. Will Putin's grip on power tighten or weaken as a result?
It's a
Tough to
dynamic
say.
situation. You mean after the result of
Yeah,
Crocus
or
attack?
if there's some more terrorist attacks in the country.
I don't think that it has changed much.
No?
His grip was tight. I thought that he was slipping in May and June of 2023 last year.
Mhm.
And his great slip was, of course, the Wagner mutiny.
Yes.
Okay. And I
Yes,
thought that
indeed.
was the first step of big changes in Russia. But that he outsmarted. He's a sly and smart guy. And his advantage that he outsmarts other people. He outsmarted Prigozhin, and I don't know what he did, but Prigozhin didn't continue his march to Moscow. And so his grip was sleeping. He was weakening then, but then he kind of regained control over Russia.
Mhm.
And right now it's pretty tight grip. And what happens in the future, I don't know. But right now, I don't think that this Crocus City attack has changed it anyhow, anyway, in any way.
Well, that's a shame all around. I would say Putin, as he was coming up through the ranks, he was not politically. He was viewed as a good leader at one time, right?
Yes,
Even
he
though
was.
he was suspect with Yeltsin's permission, of course, brought into the political establishment. I don't know if you've had time to think about it. What has changed in Putin's thinking to go all out here? Is it like
Have you
sometimes retreat is the better part of valor, saying, oh, okay, we're sorry, we're going to withdraw our troops. Everything's good. Like a silk hand or sugar is a better sweetener for countries, and he's went with a hammer.
you mean to withdraw troops from Ukraine
Yeah,
after he invaded?
right.
Um,
After the first week, he should have just withdrawn.
the Rubicon was crossed. There's no way he could return because, see, the first blood was spilled. If he would go in and immediately withdraw, how would he explain that Ukrainians and Russians were killed? For what? For nothing? Then that's his death. He's over. Once the troops withdraw, he cannot stop it. He's in Zugzwang. You see, he cannot move back. He cannot withdraw troops because that's he's going to be immediately over.
Hmm.
And then he cannot move forward because Russian army is not strong enough, and Russia is not turned out to be not strong enough. So he cannot advance in Ukraine, and he's stuck. When you play chess, this position is called Zugzwang. When every move you make, it puts you into a worse position. Um, that's basically where he is right now. It was worse before. It's a little better now for him, I think, but still, he cannot withdraw because he's going to face many questions. And as the president, as the leader, and as a man, he's going to be dead in I don't know, very soon.
Well, the Siloviki and the oligarchs in Russia can't be happy with what's transpired, right? However, are they too scared to say anything, or are they happy?
A lot of people profiteering from the war.
Yeah.
Again, there's so many things, so many sad things. Another sad thing to say is that a lot of people in Russia don't want the war to stop because they're making lots of money. They're advancing, in the power
Hmm.
hierarchy,
Hmm.
and I don't know what effect they have on whether they contribute to fueling the war or not, but I know for sure that lots of Russians not against the war. Okay.
Okay, fair enough.
Um, a lot of people have lost a great deal, and especially the oligarchs. They used to be, well, Russia was a place where they used to make money.
Yeah.
And, they used to live, their families and everything, all their estates were in the good places in Miami, in London, in Spain, in France, south of France. And now they've been kicked out of everywhere. Many oligarchs have their assets frozen, um, money confiscated, properties confiscated. So they definitely have lost a lot. They are now sitting in Russia in a prison cell. And the thing is, they cannot escape. Before, if Siloviki were to take attempt on their lives, on their fortunes, they could escape because they had everything stashed in the West.
Yeah.
Now they can't. So a lot of people who have lost, definitely. And I think there are many of those who are ready to negotiate with the West and to topple Putin and blame everything on him, saying it's not us, we didn't know, we didn't do anything. Please
Mhm.
forgive us. We'll do anything. if you forgive us, if you let us back into France, to the USA, you know, to the good places, to
Yeah.
London. And I think Putin is very afraid of that. He knows that a lot of people are in those positions who are much worse than they used to be.
Right.
Again, I don't know to what extent.
Okay, fair enough. You were saying that you don't think Putin has much longer. Did I hear that correctly? Or
No,
or
no, no.
or
I said if he were to to withdraw troops back to Russia,
sure,
he would be done in a matter of very short time.
right.
That's what I think.
But Putin has well, here's the thing we do in society. We wait for the dictator to pass away and we think, oh, it's going to be better, right? No, Putin is over the age of the lifespan of an average Russian, but he has the best doctors
Um,
his money can buy that he can
modern
find.
medicine does wonders.
You're right. This is true.
Canadian medicine, you know, Swiss medicine, American medicine does wonders. Probably used that in the past.
Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. The political establishment, well, okay, so for the next little while, it doesn't look like anything's going to change. Um, Ukraine's going to keep trying to hurt the infrastructure in Russia. Russia is going to keep bombing the cities in Ukraine.
Walter,
Where is the off ramp here? Is there an off ramp?
you see, life is much deeper and much more colorful than any of our understanding of life. I'll give you an example. The
Please.
USSR, in the summer, July and August of 1991, early August, things seemed absolutely solid. If anyone were to tell me or my parents that in 3 weeks we would wake up in a different country, we would laugh. The Soviet Union was going strong as ever. Army was strong, or it seemed at the time.
Mhm.
Ideology was there. Things were changing, perestroika, but those changes did not seem so profound to destroy the country. Okay, and 3 weeks later, we woke up in a completely different paradigm. Literally, it took 3 nights, 2 nights, okay? And we woke up in a different country, in a different world. And not just the Soviet Union, but the entire world changed, okay?
Yes.
And if anyone had told us days before that it would happen, we would not believe. And now no one would believe, okay? So I can't say that, oh, nothing will change. Anything can change, um, you know, in a blink of an eye, just like that. I don't know. If we, I live by this rule. If I want to make God laugh, I tell him about my plans. So I believe that anything can change. That the trends are for long conflict, yes. What I'm pretty sure about is that Russia has been transformed for decades, if not generations, because Russian people have changed inside, and it's not a good change, and it's not gonna be undone very, very, very easily. Okay, it's look at Germany. It took them what 80 years to change, and that's gonna take Russians a long time if they ever change. It's gonna take them a long time. But Putin, his gang, you know, all these current people in power, they will go, and they will go just like that when time will come. Okay,
Right.
and the war will stop. I'm pretty sure it will. What's going to happen to Russia after that? I don't know. No one knows. Um, that's my answer.
Well, that's a good answer. Is Boja 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 is it's in the hands of uh because like you bring up Germany and then we see the rise of the far right again, at least in the media and far right parties. It's really incredible how the far right and the Communist Party of Canada supports Russia. And then over here in North America, we have the left wing, some of the people on the left wing, if you could say that. I don't like labels left or right or whatever. It's just you vote for the best person. They're on the side of Russia, or have been. It's slowly changing.
May I interrupt you, please? What other
Yeah.
arguments?
Well, it's like I led off is Russia deserves Ukraine. Oh, just let them have it, and then life can go on. They don't want to get off the couch and work. That's the kind of people.
That's a huge difference. Does Russia deserve Ukraine, or let them have Ukraine? See,
Let
that's
them
a
have
huge difference.
Ukraine has been some
Oh,
of the arguments I've had.
okay. So let's
Right.
pacify Russia. Okay, I understand that.
That's exactly it. Because then the noise is stopped, and these people can go to their champagne parties or whatever.
But
Right.
one thing they don't understand is that Russia will not stop with Ukraine.
Right.
Now they have tasted the blood. Okay, and if they succeed, the military-industrial complex has been flooded with money. And you know
Yes.
what's going to happen? Ideology is there. They have brainwashed people a great deal, and they will declare um, continuous war economy.
Mhm.
Okay, and they will just basically we're gonna live, well, they're gonna live in Russia as in the USSR, in a state of permanent war, the whole world against us, and we must be strong at the expense of our well-being, or expense of our lives, or whatever the motherland needs from you,
Right.
we will have to give it to her because this is our duty as the citizens. And Russian army is joke right now. But you know what? In 10, 15 years, if they continue doing it, if continue, you know, strengthening the military industrial complex, it's not going to be a joke. It's going to be a real force. And you know what? They're not going to stop with Ukraine. So those people in the United States and in Canada who think that, oh, let's pacify them, they're crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we do not give people labels. Well, I do. They're crazy. Um,
That
Send
that
them to
label will
Ukraine.
stick. Yeah.
Send them to Ukraine, okay, for a few weeks, and then send them to Russia and see how people live in Russia, how they're afraid.
Mhm.
If you put a white piece of paper and you stand on the street, you're gonna get 7 freaking years in prison. Is that what the Canadians want for their country? Eventually, to have, or for the Americans? Look, I lived in America, and I find that the country is absolutely fascinated for a few things. We have the people concept. People govern themselves, and that's not Russia. That Russia is completely opposite right now. Okay,
Mhm.
so this is a system against the system. I don't know if Canada wants to change and become like Russia, or submit to Russia, or pacify Russia, whatever. And again, Russia will not stop. Sorry for being a little emotional.
No, I'm good with that. Some of the stuff you've
Those,
been.
those folks, send them to Russia. Send them and say, hey, live not as a tourist, not as an expat, but live as a Russian citizen. Get a Russian passport. It's easy to do now. And give up your Canadian passport. Would you like to do that? Really? Or give up American passport, No, 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 this, I have a return ticket at any time. No, 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 just give it up. Would you like to live in Russia for the rest of your life like that? Ask them.
Yeah, no, that's some of the arguments I've had with them, and thanks for clarifying that. That's precisely what I was thinking too.
At
Yeah.
least 6 months. They live in Russia for 6 months. They come back and say, "Hey, I like Russia." Okay, fine.
Yeah,
I will understand. I will respect that. But before they go and taste it, before they go and see it,
right.
3 million of us have fled Russia, and we're Russians. We
Yes.
love our country. We were born and raised there.
No,
Ugh.
I understand, Konstatin, and thank you for expressing that. I appreciate that very much. No, those are some of I'm going to say batshit crazy arguments that I get, and it is just incredible to me the dissonance on people's reactions to what has happened, and especially the most common thing is we better pacify Russia because they have nuclear bombs. Well,
Um,
we're going to have to learn to deal with countries who have nuclear missiles. And
that's true. That's true. Well, I don't know what to say.
yeah,
That pacifying, in my eyes, pacifying is a dead end.
yeah. No, I agree with you very much. And I've taken your time up about an hour. Is there anything you want to express to our North American audience at all, or
Um,
before we leave? Or
well, not much except for you really have something unique. One question. I started
sure.
asking questions. I'm a very unusual Russian because at the early age I was asking questions, and I started asking this one question that no one could answer in the USSR, and this question was, how come the USSR is the best country in the world, and I really believed when I was 10 years old, right? But how come there are so many people want to leave our country as immigrants and go to Israel, to America, and Canada, and no one really comes to us? We don't have immigrants in our
Nobody.
country. Why? I came to my mom, and that question absolutely shocked her. She said, I cannot answer. I don't know. I'm wondering myself. I came to my teacher, and my teacher basically told me to shut up and never say that, in a very polite way.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate. She taught me one of the first lessons in life. And right now when they say that, oh, Russia is so great, oh, Russia is this, and um, the evil satanic West. But if you go to Mexico, to the
Mhm.
border with the United States, you will find thousands of Russians living in tents, waiting to get to the United States. And you will also find thousands of Chinese who are doing the same thing.
Yes. Yes.
And that is for very good reason. In Canada, I'm pretty sure that if Canada had a border with another country, the same thing would be happening in Canada. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, you have something great, incredible, and unique that you have built, and I really think so. I witnessed it. I was amazed. It was completely different from what I had been used to when I was growing up. And I want to say, hey, do you know what, folks? Don't lose it. Don't lose it, because I guess everyone can change, and your countries can change too. But it would be a shame, because you are beacons for everyone, and people vote with their freedom, with their lives. They run to your countries. They seek for protection, political asylum. They seek better life there, and that's for a good reason. So keep that, and please keep on showing the others the way. That's what I wanted to say.
Konstantin, thank you for that. It's very profound thinking, and the dialogue on that is just tremendous. So thank you very much. Can you just hang on, and I'll close out the show, and
Sure,
we'll talk for a minute, if you don't mind.
sure.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, thank you very much. This has been, we've had Konstantin from Inside Russia on our show, and I so much appreciate it. And for anybody out there who, there we go. I need a technical person. For anybody out there, please look at it, Inside Russia on YouTube, and you can catch them on the Silicon Curtain, and really appreciate it. With that, we're going to say bye-bye.